Check, is your boy Free Play, and we're back with another video. Today I'm going to be showing you how I set up my MPC with Ableton as an external instrument, and also how I sync my ASR 10 with the MPC 2000 XL to make beats and then track them out into Ableton. So to do that, we're going to be using a MIDI interface. I have this one, which is a MIO MIDI interface. It's a one channel MIDI interface. Basically, my audio interface doesn't have MIDI. If yours does, then you don't need this. But if you have an interface that doesn't have MIDI inputs, then you're gonna need one of these. I'll put the link in the description. And basically, I'm gonna screen record my Ableton session so you guys can see how I set up the MPC as a slave inside of Ableton using the external instrument plugin, basically. And I'll also show you the settings inside the MPC and inside the ASR 10 in order to have these things talking to each other. So basically, my workflow is I'm usually sampling into the ASR 10. I'm using the MPC to sequence the ASR 10, and then I use Ableton to basically trigger everything so everything could be on time and track that out. I know it sounds a little confusing, but hopefully this will clear things up. Lately, a lot of my videos, I've been working solely on the ASR 10, but a lot of times I use both samplers together, and this video will explain how. So I had my two samplers on since last night. I was working on a sampled beat using this record that was given to me by my best friend from high school, Ivan Romero. I mentioned him in another video, and this comes from his mother's collection. I've sampled a lot from this record because it has a lot of gems in it, and I always find something new. It's just one of those records that I always keep coming back to. So those samples are already loaded up, and I'll show you in the ASR kind of what I did to the sample, and we're gonna get to it. Hopefully this video is helpful for you guys, and we're gonna learn something new. All right, it's your boy Free Play, and I'll check you guys inside my Ableton template. Peace. All right, so we're here inside of my Ableton session, and this is the default template that opens up every time that I'm working with my samplers. Opposed to what I said in the intro, I'm actually not going to be using the external instrument, and I'll explain to you guys why and when you would use that. So the most important settings here is for you to make sure that your interface is communicating correctly with your MPC. And in order to do that, you want to go into your preferences, and that could be found up here in live preferences, or in the shortcut command comma or control comma if you're using Windows. And you're going to see here where it says link MIDI, you're going to see the MIO. So the input and output, you want it basically to look like this. You're going to see that inside the MPC, it is important that you use either MIDI timecode or MIDI clock. I'm going to be using MIDI clock because my settings inside the MPC are going to mirror exactly this. Now, I'll quickly explain when the external instrument is used. So let's say you have some sounds loaded up into your ASR, and you want to use Ableton to trigger those sounds and record them onto this track up here. So the way that you want to load that up is you go here into your instruments on the left side, external instruments, and you want to make sure the MIDI to is going to be MIO channel 1, and then audio from is wherever you have your MPC connected into your interface. So normally I have that on channel 2, but right now I'm using my inputs to record this screen recording, and I'm not going to be recording any audio from the actual MPC. The way that I made the beat that I'm going to be tracking today is that I sampled everything into the ASR 10, and I'm just using the AKAI MPC as my MIDI sequencer. So it's basically triggering the ASR, and I'm going to show you guys how to set that up as well. So this is how you want your session to look. Here you'll see that my ASR is connected to channel 1. There's signal coming in because that's where my mic is, but when I go into recording the actual beat, I will have the ASR on channel 1, and I would have the MPC on channel 2, even though in this case, everything is gonna be coming through the ASR. But normally I'm recording through both samplers, so this is just something to save me time and how I have my template set up. So I'm gonna move over now to the MPC 2000 XL and record the screen and show you where in the menu you're gonna be able to find the MIDI settings and how you want that to look, all right? So thank you guys for rocking with me, and let's go over to the MPC 2000 XL. Peace. All right, cool. So we're here in front of the AKAI MPC 2000 XL, and I'm gonna explain to you guys how I have my MIDI connected. I have the MIDI out of the ASR coming into the MIDI in 1 of the AKAI MPC. Then the MIDI in of the ASR 10 is coming into the MIDI out A of the AKAI MPC 2000 XL. And the reason why I like to put the MPC on channel 1 is because you'll see down here where I have my drums device. These are my tracks of the ASR. So I have all these tracks. If I would have the ASR connected into channel 2, I would have to go all the way to where it starts saying B, and it just makes it harder for me to navigate. So I like to have the ASR 10 on the first channel. And then this part might seem a little confusing, but if you buy the same MIO interface that I have, there is a USB side. Here, bring it into the frame. This obviously goes to your computer. And then the MIDI sides, which I use the second input of the AKAI MPC, you're gonna wanna connect this MIDI in to MIDI out B. That's how MIDI works. You want the in going into the out and the out going into the in. It sounds confusing, but if you connect it the other way, this will not work, and you will think that your interface is messed up or something is going on with your sampler. And that happened to me in the beginning as well. Rookie mistake. This MIDI out is gonna go into the MIDI into of the AKAI MPC. And that's how you're gonna have Ableton and your AKAI MPC talking to each other. So as I'm making my beat, I don't change anything in these MIDI settings yet. I just have my devices talking to each other right now. I use the AKAI to sequence. As you can see, I have a few tracks here that are playing a beat, and I'll hit play here. I just changed the track, that's probably why. Cool, that's the track that I needed on there. But anyways, so none of these sounds that you're hearing right now are coming from the MPC. They're actually being triggered by the MPC to the ASR. So anyways, once you're ready to track out your beat, which I already have my beat kind of done, and I want it to go into to Ableton, you're gonna wanna go here into your MIDI settings. And this is so that you could hit record or spacebar record in Ableton. And basically, like, anytime you hit play in Ableton, you're gonna be triggering your MPC, and everything is gonna play, and then you could record into your DAW. Okay, so you're gonna hit shift and then the number 9, take you into your MIDI settings. You could leave this empty because you don't need anything to talk to your ASR here. You just want to talk, you just want the AKAI MPC to listen to Ableton, and that's on input 2, as I mentioned before. So you're gonna go here to 2, and then you're gonna go here, and remember in the screen recording where I showed you guys, we have it on not MIDI time code, we have it on MIDI clock. And then here, receive MIDI, and that stands for MIDI machine code. We're gonna set this to on. Okay, now if we go to if we have these settings exactly how this looks, you don't need to do anything in the sync out. You don't need to do anything there. Let's go back to our main screen. And basically here, you can still play. It's gonna sound a little bit funky, but what you really wanna do is hit spacebar on your Ableton and see if it triggers your MPC, and it should. So here you can see basically that anytime I hit spacebar, you should see this EXT turn on up here, and that'll basically tell you that the AKAI MPC is receiving external MIDI information. And basically what this mode is making the MPC the slave and Ableton the master. All right, so now I'm gonna go into the ASR 10 and show you guys how I have that set up here. I'm gonna just mute these tracks from here. One last thing that I wanted to show you guys before I move over to the ASR 10 is a ASR program that I load into the MPC every time I'm working with this combination. And I could put this up on my Patreon if you guys are interested and want to support the channel. But it's basically something that I'll show you guys how to set up yourself. But if it's confusing for you guys could just download it off of my Patreon. But basically the pads, the concept here is that the pads on the MPC are not assigned chromatically. So I want to be able to go chromatically on the notes and the things that are on my ASR. So I load up this program and you'll see it here. It's an ASR program that I created myself. And when I go to my drums, my drum 1 has the ASR program loaded. And you'll see here when I hit A1, it'll hit note 36. When I hit A2, it'll hit note 37, etc., etc. And I had to go this through bank A through D and set this up manually myself. And you could do the same thing and then save it as a program, or you could just download it from the Patreon. It's up to you guys, but you'll see that each note just keeps going all the way up to 98. So I had to do that and save it, and I don't have to do it again. But basically, when I have a device loaded here, I go to a new track or any of these tracks, right? I have drum 1 and then my 1A device, which is track 1 on the ASR 10, which is my kicks, is just loaded chromatically across my pads. So I could trigger them from my MPC. And that's just something that makes my life easier. If you guys understand this concept, you know, I could go into it further in another video, but I wanted to show you guys a program that I load in every time that I use my ASR MPC combo. Now, the other last thing is going to be this phasing issue that some people complain about when they have the MPC and the ASR connected together. And that could be avoided by just hitting open window here and making sure that this soft through is off. So a lot of times I've seen these videos about how to connect the ASR and the MPC, and this isn't addressed. So you wanna make sure that soft through, MIDI soft through is off. That way you won't have this double tracking thing that happens. And whenever you play a sound from the ASR, you won't also be triggering double notes, and sometimes that makes your sample sound weird. So the way you get rid of that is just by doing this, and that's just another gem for you guys. Now I'm gonna switch over to the ASR 10, go over the chops that I did, and basically wrap it up, show you the MIDI settings there, and hopefully when I put this all together and make sense for you guys. MIDI could be a very confusing subject, and if you guys have any questions, throw them in the comments. I'll do my best to get back to you guys. I've been trying my best to answer all the comments and things like that right now that the page is still a small community. So thank you guys for being patient with me. Thank you guys for rocking with me. Let's go to the ASR 10, hear this beat, and finally get to tracking it out. All right, peace. All right, so we're here in front of the ASR 10. And I'm basically going to show you guys what MIDI settings should look like on your ASR. So I already went over how the MIDI in and out should be connected. And this is where you'll see it in the back. My MIDI in is going again to my MIDI in cable is going into my MIDI out of my MPC. My MIDI out cable is going to my MIDI in one of my MPC. So that's how these cables need to be connected. My MIDI through cable is empty. There's nothing plugged into that there. So then here, if you go to your edit system MIDI page, you want to keep going with the side button here. MIDI in mode, you want it to be set to multi. And if you read the manual or you look up the manual that I've linked in other videos, basically the way that this works is that each track corresponds to one MIDI device. So on the MPC, you saw 1A, 2A, 3A, all the way up to 8A. And that's going to be any track that I put, any sample that I put here, I could access that on the MPC by picking the corresponding number for my ASR instrument. So on 1, I have my kicks. That's where I normally put them from my snare Jordan, my snares. I have my hats on 3. And then here is the sample that I use from the vinyl. And basically, this is how I set it up. If you guys need any help doing this, for now, I could offer a Zoom. Like if you guys have the same setup, I could offer a Zoom call where I could show you how to set it up in real time. And you guys could reach out to the email that's in there, in the description, to go about setting that up if you still don't get it after this video. I'm hoping that this video answers all the questions. I'm going to just make this a tech talk. I'm not going to actually track the beat. You heard it a little bit throughout the video. This is going to go under a tech talk because it's a very technical video about MIDI, and MIDI could be very confusing, especially when you have old samplers that don't just connect to your computer via USB. So using that interface, it makes life easier, and understanding the way that MIDI is connected is also something that helps in this situation. Hopefully, this video cleared that up. Here I have, let me see if I play the beat, you guys could hear some of it. That's the beat that I made, and I have each thing triggered. Let me stop the beat real quick. And basically here on my Sophie sample, I have this loop that I found, and I tuned it down, and basically I put it on these two, and I'm basically like just looping it for 8 bars, so it goes. And I cut it basically like. And it'll basically loop. And I found the BPM using the MPC. So that's another way of working. It's not as easy as when I just loop something automatically in Ableton that I know the BPM. So if you go back in the video, you'll see that my BPM in the MPC is like a weird number, like 135.8, because that's kind of like where it loops perfectly. And I could go more in depth, but then these videos will be super duper long. This was more just to explain to you guys how I use MIDI, and then I trigger it from Ableton to track out beats this way. I hope that this video is not all over the place and too confusing, and that it makes sense. It's an advanced concept using MIDI, but that's the way that you use the ASR with the MPC. And when you see those old videos of Kanye producing with these two machines, I'm 100% sure that that's how these were connected and set up during that time to work, making these things talk to each other. And I guess one of the reasons, if we want to go into it, why this setup is very powerful is because you'll notice that even to loop things, especially samples, it's a lot easier when the MPC is being used as the master sequencer to the ASR, because you could do like those type of BPMs, like 135, 0.8. If you look at old Primo videos where he's talking about the floppies that he has for Nas beats, some of them are like 82.7, and those like point BPMs where you're able to get perfect loops. And if you notice here in the sequencer setting of the ASR, it's not able to do any points. It just goes 100, let me show you here, 101. you can't get those little micro BPMs. So I think using the MPC as the main sequencer, it makes it a little easier to kind of find perfect loops when you're triggering samples that are from vinyl that are not warped perfectly. If that makes any sense. I know I keep saying that, but this is kind of like this is how you discover things, and why, you know, you use multiple machines sometimes to be able to get, you know, working with samples and with vinyl. You know, people will trigger basically like an MPC 60 triggering a S950. You know what I mean? Like the sequencer on the 60 could do those, you know, 0.3 BPMs and things like that. Whereas the 950 is kind of being used how I'm using the ASR as the sampler for its sound, for its way of chopping, for its way of being able to loop. And then you're able to trigger that with these micro, you know, increments on the BPM with the other machine. So, you know, I don't want to make this talk too long. This is your boy Free Play. If there's a lot of questions, please leave them in the comments. If you need extra help and you want to do a Zoom call, I'll be able to offer that as a service for the time being. If I'm not too busy, you could email me at info@coconnirecords.com. And if you want that ASR program that I use on my 2000 XL, you could, you know, support it via the Patreon, or you could just reference back to the video and learn how to make it yourself for free. So hopefully this was helpful. I'm going to check you guys with more videos coming up, me working on the ASR or on the MPC. I'm going to holla at y'all. Peace.